The stars above the colony world burned bright, scattered like silver dust across the black sky. It was a quiet night, the kind of night when the people of the outpost like to walk outside and breathe the cool air. But tonight no one looked at the stars with calm hearts. They were waiting. Everyone knew what was about to happen. An alien ship was coming. The station guards lined up in the open landing zone. Their boots echoed on the metal ground. Among them stood a soldier named Aaron. He was not a commander. He was not famous. To most, he was just another face in the uniform. But tonight fate had placed him here. His hands tightened around his rifle as he glanced at the others. Some looked nervous. Some tried to look brave. Aaron simply kept quiet. Above, the air shimmered. A giant ship slowly appeared from the sky, dark and sharp like a blade. Its size dwarfed the human shuttles nearby. The ground shook as its engines roared and blue lights washed over the platform. The humans stood straight, trying not to look small. The ship opened with a hiss, releasing a ramp of silver metal. Out stepped the alien diplomat. She was tall, her skin a pale shade of violet, her eyes glowing like two small suns. A cloak of dark crystal armor flowed around her shoulders. Her guards followed, but even they seemed to keep a respectful distance. The humans had heard many stories about her people. They said her species never showed emotion. They said she lived only by strict rules and endless protocol. Aaron's eyes followed her carefully. She did not move like a human. Every step was precise, measured, perfect. Her gaze swept across the human soldiers as if she was studying them. Not with warmth, but with curiosity. When her eyes landed on Aaron, he felt something strange, like being weighed and judged. Then her gaze moved on, and the feeling vanished. The commander stepped forward, giving the alien diplomat a formal greeting. Words of peace were exchanged. Promises of cooperation were made. Cameras recorded everything for history. But behind the speeches and handshakes, tension was heavy in the air. Humans and aliens had never trusted each other fully. This meeting was supposed to change that. Aaron stood still, but his instincts were restless. He had learned long ago to trust small details, and now something caught his attention. At the far edge of the landing zone, where the shadows were thick, a flicker moved. It was so brief most eyes would miss it, but Aaron noticed. He squinted, but the shadow was gone. Maybe it was only his imagination. Maybe not. He stayed alert. The alien diplomat continued walking toward the station. Around her, humans whispered quietly, impressed by her presence. Some were afraid. Some were simply curious. To them, she was a symbol of the future. To Aaron, she was just a mission. Protect her, follow orders, nothing more. Yet deep inside, a question formed in his mind. Why would someone like her, powerful and untouchable, come all the way here to a small human colony? Peace talks were the official reason. But peace rarely brought ships that large or guards that armed. The night grew colder. As the group moved inside the station, Aaron marched with the other soldiers. His ears caught fragments of conversation. The alien guards spoke in low voices, words he could not understand. One of them glanced at him with sharp eyes, then looked away. Aaron felt the weight of suspicion. Trust was not a gift in this place, it was a currency, traded slowly, piece by piece. Behind the walls of the station, the halls buzzed with preparation. Diplomats, officers, and technicians rushed back and forth. Every corner was cleaned, every banner polished. This was history in the making, and no one wanted to appear weak. Aaron held his position near the entrance, watching both sides. The alien diplomat stood tall, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Then she spoke, her voice low but clear. "We are here," she said, "to test if humans are worthy of trust." The words echoed. Officers nodded, smiling politely, but Aaron noticed how her own guard stiffened at the phrase, "test." That word was heavy. And again, as she spoke, Aaron thought he saw movement in the corner of his eye, something in the shadow of the docking bay. He turned slightly, scanning, but found nothing. A chill ran down his spine. He was sure of it this time. They were not alone, but the speeches continued and no one else seemed to notice. Outside the windows, the stars burned silently, and somewhere among them, ships without lights were already drifting closer. The station lights glowed soft and white, casting long shadows across the polished metal floor. The alien diplomat stood tall in the council chamber, her cloak flowing behind her like liquid night. Human officers and advisors filled the room, speaking carefully, their voices measured as though afraid to break something fragile. Cameras hummed quietly in the corners, recording every movement, every breath. Aaron remained near the entrance with the other guards, his rifle steady against his chest. From where he stood, he could see everything. The stiff body language of the humans, the unreadable calm of the alien envoy. The way her guards stayed close yet never touched her. She was like a statue carved from living stone, flawless and unshaken. The human commander cleared his throat. "We welcome you," he said, "to this station, to our colony, and to our future together." The alien diplomat inclined her head, a motion so controlled it seemed mechanical. "Your words are noted," she replied, her voice echoing like chimes in an empty hall. "But words are only the beginning. Protocol demands proof." Her eyes scanned the humans. No warmth, no smile, only judgment. For her, this was not a friendship. This was a test. The room grew heavy with silence. Some of the younger officers shifted uncomfortably. They had trained for diplomacy, but it was clear. This alien woman did not believe in kindness. Her people lived by rules older than the stars, rules that cut out all softness. To them, bonds were weakness. Aaron's gaze never left her. He did not understand her language fully, but he understood her tone. Cold. Exact. As if she had already decided humans were not good enough. Still, there was something else. Something he could not name. A spark in her eyes, faint but there. She studied the humans not just with suspicion, but with curiosity. Almost like she wanted to see something more. The diplomat stepped forward. "In my culture," she said, "there is no attachment, no favoritism, no bonds that bend judgment. Protocol forbids it. Emotion leads to chaos. Duty is the only law." The words hit the room like a blade. The human commander forced a polite nod, but Aaron could see the stiffness in his jaw. Around the chamber, murmurs rose and fell, whispers of doubt and unease. If this was peace, it felt colder than war. Aaron shifted slightly, and again he noticed it, the faint flicker in the corner of his vision. A shadow moved beyond the wide glass wall, quick and subtle. He blinked, focusing, but by the time his eyes locked on the spot, it was gone. Not my imagination, he thought. Something was out there. He scanned the humans, but no one else seemed to notice. Everyone was too caught up in the diplomat's sharp words. She continued, her voice steady. "We do not fear weapons. We do not fear armies. What we fear is loyalty, the human bond to each other, to allies, even to strangers. Such things break logic. Such things break protocol." Her gaze swept the room again. For a brief moment, her eyes landed on Aaron. They lingered this time longer than before. He stood firm, meeting her gaze, and for the first time he thought he saw something stir behind her cold mask. Was it curiosity or challenge? The chamber doors closed with a hiss. The talks moved on to agreements, trade rights, defense plans. Voices rose and fell in steady rhythm. But Aaron's focus kept drifting back to the shadows outside. In the docking bay, small maintenance drones hovered, fixing cables and lights. But beyond them, beyond the reach of the station's glow, the darkness seemed too deep, too still. He remembered the stories told in the barracks, whispered at night when soldiers tried to scare each other. Tales of raiders who hunted ships in silence, killing engines and floating like ghosts. Ships that carried no signals, no lights, only death. Aaron swallowed. His instinct screamed, but he kept silent. For now. Inside the chamber, the alien diplomat raised a hand, silencing her guards. She spoke again. "If peace is to be real, you must prove that humans can follow order, not only passion." Her words struck him harder than she could have known. Aaron thought of the soldiers he had fought beside, of friends who had died not for orders but for each other. Passion, loyalty, sacrifice, that was humanity. To strip it away was to strip away the very thing that made them human. He did not speak. He was only a soldier. But inside he felt the heat of defiance rise. The human commander smiled thinly, bowing his head. "We understand your conditions," he said. "We will show you our strength." But Aaron knew strength was not in cold rules. Strength was in the bond of trust, the will to protect. And as the alien envoy's gaze brushed against him again, a silent challenge passed between them, one he did not fully understand yet. Outside, beyond the glass, the shadows shifted again. Silent ships without lights crept closer to the colony, unseen by all but him. And in that moment, Aaron realized the real test was about to begin. The peace chamber was filled with quiet tension. Words were spoken, promises repeated, but under it all there was a silence too heavy to ignore. Aaron kept scanning the wide glass wall at the back of the chamber. To the others, it was only a view of stars. To him, it was a warning. He had seen the shadows moving out there, and his instincts told him danger was close. He kept his rifle ready, his eyes sharp. Around him, the guards stood stiff and still, more concerned with ceremony than security. The alien diplomat stood at the center of the chamber, her cloak shining faintly under the lights. She looked calm, but her eyes narrowed when she noticed Aaron's focus on the windows. Then it happened. A low vibration shook the floor like the growl of some invisible beast. The lights flickered once, twice, then the alarm screamed. Red lights spun across the walls, bathing the chamber in blood-colored glow. "Unidentified ships inbound," shouted a voice from the command desk. "They're breaching defense lines." The words fell like thunder. Officers scrambled, shouting orders, their calm voices now breaking in panic. The alien diplomat turned sharply, her guards surrounding her in a tight circle. The humans fumbled to react, but it was already too late. The first explosion hit the docking bay. The walls trembled. Smoke poured in through the cracks. Screams echoed as pieces of the ceiling crashed down. Soldiers rushed to their positions, but the attackers were already inside. Dark shapes burst through the doors. Armored raiders, masked and armed with rifles that hissed with blue plasma. Their footsteps thundered across the floor as they fired into the chamber. Chaos. Pure chaos. Humans shouted. Officers ducked. Papers flew into the air. Soldiers returned fire, but the raiders pressed forward, ruthless and fast. Aaron didn't think. He moved. The alien diplomat stood frozen in the center, her guards struggling to shield her. Plasma blasts lit the air around her, burning holes in the walls. Without hesitation, Aaron sprinted across the floor. He shoved one of her guards aside and placed himself between her and the enemy fire. His rifle roared as he shot back, covering her retreat. "Get her out!" Aaron shouted, his voice breaking through the panic. The diplomat's eyes widened. She had never seen a human act so recklessly, so fiercely without thought of self. His stance was desperate yet unshakable. He was not following orders. He was simply protecting her. Plasma bolts tore through the air. One grazed his shoulder, burning flesh, but he did not fall. He pushed the diplomat back, forcing her behind the thick metal support beams. The raiders advanced, their weapons glowing. Aaron's rifle grew hot in his hands, the barrel steaming as he fired shot after shot. He dropped one raider, then another, but more kept coming. Smoke thickened. The alarms wailed. The chamber became a storm of noise and fire. The alien diplomat grabbed his arm suddenly, her voice sharp. "You will die!" Aaron looked at her, sweat and blood running down his face. "Not if you live," he answered. For the first time in her life, the diplomat froze, not from calculation, but from shock. His words broke something inside her. His defiance made no sense to her people's cold logic. Yet in his eyes she saw no fear, only determination. Another explosion rocked the chamber. The ceiling split, raining sparks and metal shards. A blast hit the wall near them, sending both to the floor. Aaron groaned, pain lancing through his side. But still, he crawled forward, rifle raised, firing until his vision blurred. The raiders hesitated. For a moment, they stared at this lone human who refused to die quietly. His stand gave the others time to regroup. Soldiers rallied, pulling wounded out, firing back with renewed fury. But Aaron knew the truth. They were outnumbered. This was not a defense. This was a delay, and he was the shield. He staggered to his feet, pulling the diplomat behind him again. His breaths came ragged, his uniform torn, his blood marking the floor. Yet his hands never shook. One final wave of raiders burst through the broken doors. Aaron raised his rifle one last time, teeth clenched, eyes burning. "Run!" he roared at the alien diplomat, and with that he charged forward into the fire. The council chamber was no longer a place of peace. Smoke filled the air, thick and bitter, choking the lungs of anyone still standing. Fires licked across broken consoles. Sparks rained down like burning stars, and the alarm screamed as if the station itself was crying out in pain. Aaron stood in the center of it all, swaying on his feet, his uniform torn and stained with blood. His rifle was almost empty, its barrel scorched and smoking. His breath came in sharp gasps, but his eyes were steady. He had placed himself between the alien diplomat and the enemy, and he refused to move. The raiders poured through the shattered doors like a flood of shadows. Their armor gleamed with cold light, their weapons hissing with deadly plasma. They advanced without hesitation, driven by greed or hatred, or both. The alien diplomat stood behind Aaron, her crystal cloak torn, her expression unreadable. Her guards were scattered, some wounded, some dead. For the first time, she had no protection left but him. One human soldier who should have run but chose to stand. "Aaron," one of the officers shouted through the chaos. "Fall back." "That's an order." But Aaron did not listen. Orders meant nothing now. Only the diplomat's life mattered. He could feel it deep inside. If she died here, the fragile hope of peace would die with her. A plasma bolt struck his chest plate, sending him crashing against the wall. Pain exploded through his ribs. He coughed blood, but he forced himself upright again. His rifle shook in his hands as he fired back, dropping another raider. His body was failing, but his spirit refused to yield. The diplomat's eyes locked on him. She had seen soldiers fight before. She had seen warriors fall in battles across the stars. But this was different. This human fought not for glory, not for reward, not for command. He fought only for her. Against every protocol of her people, against every law of logic, he chose her. Her guards shouted at her in their own tongue, begging her to retreat. But she did not move. She was frozen, torn between fear and something she had no word for. Aaron staggered forward, planting himself in the doorway, blocking the raider's advance. He spread his arms, his rifle aimed at the closest enemy. His silhouette stood against the fire and smoke, a lone figure refusing to let death pass. One of the raiders sneered behind his mask and fired. The plasma bolt struck Aaron's side. He cried out, his body twisting, but still he did not fall. He pressed his back to the wall and raised his rifle again, firing until the last of his rounds were gone. Click. The rifle emptied. Aaron stared at the useless weapon in his hands. Then, with a grunt of defiance, he swung it like a club, smashing it against the nearest raider's helmet. Sparks flew. The raider fell. The others hesitated, shocked by his madness. But then they surged forward again, overwhelming him. Blades flashed. Plasma cracked. Aaron fought with fists, with elbows, with every ounce of strength his body had left. He drove one raider back, then another, but the third cut across his chest. Blood spilled, dark and heavy. His vision blurred. His knees weakened. And yet, he still stood. Behind him, the diplomat cried out, her voice sharp and breaking. It was not a command. It was not cold protocol. It was something else, raw and real. She reached for him, her violet hand brushing his arm as he swayed. "Aaron," she whispered. His name. No title, no rank. Just him. He turned his head, blood dripping from his lips, and gave her a faint smile. "Stay alive," he said, his voice cracked but steady. "That's all that matters." The raiders closed in for the final strike. Aaron drew in one last breath. Then, with a roar that shook the chamber, he hurled himself into them, driving his broken body forward, shielding her with his very flesh. The diplomat's eyes widened as plasma fire tore through him. She saw his body burn, saw the wounds open, and still he pushed. Still he blocked. Still he refused to fall. At last, his strength gave out. He collapsed to his knees, his arms still stretched wide as if to guard her even in death. His body hit the floor with a dull thud. Silence fell for a heartbeat. The raiders stepped back uneasy. They had expected an easy kill, but what they had faced was something else. A human who would not surrender even to death. The diplomat dropped to her knees beside him. Her hand trembled as she reached for his, a gesture forbidden in her culture. Yet she did not care. For the first time, her mask of cold logic shattered. She held his hand as the last breath left him. His eyes closed, his face calm, and with that something broke inside her. Protocols, laws, rules, it all meant nothing now. This human had given everything for her, and she would never forget. The alarms still screamed. The fires still burned. The battle was not over. But in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause. One human had died protecting her. And nothing would ever be the same again. The chamber was filled with smoke and silence. The alarms still cried, fires still burned in the corners, but for a long moment no one moved. The raiders hesitated, their weapons raised but their eyes fixed on the fallen soldier. Aaron's body lay in the center of the room, blood pooling beneath him. His hand still stretched out as if protecting the alien diplomat even after death. She knelt beside him, her violet hands trembling. Her people's laws were clear, no attachments, no personal bonds. To touch another in grief was forbidden, yet she did not care. Her hand pressed against his cooling fingers. her lips parting in a whisper no one expected. "Protector," she said. The word was sacred in her language, reserved for legends, for the rare few who gave their lives for something greater. Her guards froze, their eyes wide with shock. Even the raiders paused, unsure of what they had just heard. Her heart pounded in her chest. For the first time in her long life, she felt the sharp edge of grief. It was more than pain. It was something her culture had never taught her to name. He had been only a soldier, only a human, and yet he had broken through every wall she carried inside. The raiders shouted in their tongue and raised their weapons again, but something had changed. The diplomat stood slowly, her cloak torn and stained, her eyes burning with a fire no one had seen before. She lifted her hand and her guards obeyed instantly, forming a shield around her. "Leave his body," she commanded, her voice like steel. One raider laughed, stepping forward as if to spit on the corpse. But before he could act, she spoke again, her tone sharp as a blade. "Touch him, and you face me." Her people's guards exchanged uneasy glances. They had never seen her defy protocol. To threaten in the name of a human was unthinkable. But her voice carried no doubt, no weakness. She meant every word. The raiders hesitated. Then alarms echoed again, this time from the outer halls. Reinforcements were arriving. Human soldiers stormed the chamber, their rifles blazing. The raiders, unwilling to waste time, retreated into the smoke, leaving the wreckage behind. When the fighting ended, the chamber was half destroyed, bodies scattered across the floor. The humans rushed to secure the wounded. Officers barked orders. But their voices dimmed when they saw the alien diplomat standing over Aaron's body. She knelt again, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the shocked faces. With her own hands, she pulled a strip of cloth from her cloak and laid it gently across Aaron's chest. In her culture, this was no small act. It was a right reserved only for their own honored dead. To give it to a human was to break every law her people had built for centuries. Her guards shifted nervously. One stepped forward, speaking quickly in their tongue, begging her to stop. She silenced him with a single glance. "This human is not forgotten," she declared, her voice echoing across the ruined hall. "He is my protector." "He is one of us," gasps filled the room. The human commander blinked in disbelief. You honor him?" Her gaze snapped to him. "I do more than honor him. I claim him. His sacrifice binds me. His life will not be wasted." Her words sent ripples through both sides. The human stared, confused but awed. Her own people's guards looked as though the ground had fallen beneath them. No one had ever heard a diplomat break protocol so openly, so completely. For a heartbeat, no one dared speak. Then slowly, the diplomat rose to her full height. Her cloak, torn and burned, dragged behind her. She turned to her guards. "Carry him," she ordered. The guards froze, stunned. To carry the body of a human? It was forbidden. But her eyes burned with command. Hesitating, they obeyed. They lifted Aaron's body gently, as if he were no longer just a human soldier but something far more. The chamber filled with whispers. Some called it madness, some called it betrayal, but others saw it as the birth of something new. As they carried Aaron's body through the ruined station, humans and aliens alike stopped to watch. Many bowed their heads, uncertain why, only knowing they were witnessing history. The diplomat walked beside him, her steps heavy with sorrow but unbroken in resolve. For the first time, she ignored the laws of her people. For the first time, she chose feeling over rule, loyalty over logic, and she knew there was no going back. Her people would question her. Leaders would condemn her. Perhaps they would even try to strip her of her title. But none of that mattered. The human had died for her. And in doing so, he had shown her a truth greater than any law. Sometimes loyalty was stronger than fear and love stronger than protocol. And in her heart, she swore, his death would not be the end. It would be the beginning. The fires in the council chamber had long been extinguished. The walls were repaired, the broken glass replaced, but the memory of that night could not be erased. The image of a lone human soldier standing against a wave of raiders spread faster than any ship. His story traveled across the stars, carried by whispers, official reports, and secret transmissions. Everywhere, people spoke of him, the human who died protecting an alien diplomat. At first, many thought it was only a rumor. Why would a human, a soldier with no rank or glory, sacrifice himself for a woman from another species? especially one known for coldness and distance. But the diplomat herself confirmed it. She stood before the galaxy and named him her protector. She told the story in detail, her voice trembling with emotions her people had never dared to admit before. The galaxy was stunned. On human colonies, citizens mourned Aaron as a hero. Streets were filled with memorials, small candles glowing against the night. Children whispered his name and parents told the story again and again. Soldiers across the fleets lifted their heads with pride, for one of their own had shown the universe the heart of humanity. But it was not only humans who were shaken. Among the alien diplomat's people, her act caused an earthquake of controversy. Never before had one of their leaders broken the sacred protocols. Never before had they claimed a foreigner as kin. Some called her corrupted, others called her lost. Yet many quietly began to wonder, what kind of beings were humans if they could inspire such loyalty, such devotion, even in those who had sworn never to feel? In great halls across the stars, leaders debated. Was this human an exception, or were all humans capable of such defiance of death? If one soldier could alter the will of a diplomat, what could an army of such beings do? For some, the thought was terrifying. For others, it was inspiring. The diplomat, however, did not argue or defend herself. She carried Aaron's memory like a weapon in a shield. Wherever she spoke, she told of his last words, of how he stood bleeding and broken but still demanded she live. And as she spoke, the galaxy began to listen. Her enemies could not silence her. Her allies could not ignore her. She had seen something no law could erase. In her private chambers, she kept the strip of cloth she had laid on his chest, now marked with human blood. It was a constant reminder. Her people would never accept it fully, but she no longer cared. To her, Aaron was proof that humanity was not just another species fighting for survival. They were different. They were dangerous not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts. On human worlds, the military used his story to inspire recruits. Stand like Aaron, they told them. Protect like Aaron. But outside the barracks, ordinary people whispered something deeper. Humans will fight not just for themselves, but for those they choose to protect. And once chosen, nothing can stop them. This truth frightened many alien governments. Some began to doubt alliances with humans. Others rushed to secure them, desperate to gain the loyalty of a people who would bleed and die for their friends. The balance of power shifted, not through fleets or armies, but through the memory of one soldier's sacrifice. And the alien diplomat carried the weight of it everywhere she went. In council halls, she faced accusations. "You broke the code," they shouted. "You shattered our way of life." "Yes," she answered simply. "Because a human shattered mine." Her words echoed like thunder. Some leaders condemned her. Some turned their backs. But others, slowly, cautiously, began to wonder if the old rules were chains, not shields. If humans could die for strangers, maybe they had discovered something greater than protocol. Rumors spread of other diplomats secretly reaching out to humans, curious, wanting to understand this strange devotion. Traitors carried the story from planet to planet. Even soldiers from hostile nations began to whisper it, admiring in secret what their leaders denied in public. Aaron had become more than a man. He had become a symbol, and symbols were more powerful than ships. At night, when the alien diplomat stood alone, she would look at the stars and feel the weight of his memory. She had never spoken the word friend before, never even allowed herself to think it, but now she whispered it softly when no one could hear. Friend, protector, human. And deep in her heart, she swore again that his death would not end in silence. His story would spread until every corner of the galaxy knew what humanity truly was. Not fragile, not weak but unbreakable. The memorial stood on a wide plateau overlooking the colony's twin suns. The air was still, the sky painted in soft hues of gold and violet, as though the heavens themselves had come to honor the fallen. At the center of the platform was a tall stone pillar, carved with words in both human script and the alien diplomat's ancient tongue. At its base rested Aaron's name, glowing faintly under the light. Crowds gathered in silence. Humans and aliens stood side by side, a sight that only weeks ago would have been unthinkable. Soldiers, diplomats, workers, children, all came to witness the moment. They had not gathered for politics. They had not come for trade or treaties. They had come for one man who had given his life without hesitation. Aaron. At the front stood the alien diplomat, Her cloak had been repaired, but she no longer wore it as a symbol of pride. Now it hung heavy, a reminder of what she had lost and what she had gained. Her eyes swept across the crowd. For the first time, she did not look cold or distant. Her expression carried something new, something human. The human commander stepped forward first. His voice was steady but strained with emotion. Aaron was not the highest-ranked soldier among us. He was not the strongest or the most decorated. But when the time came, he chose to stand where no one else would. And because of him, peace did not die that night. The crowd bowed their heads. Then the alien diplomat moved forward. The air shifted. Every eye turned toward her. No one knew what she would say. Her people had long forbidden public shows of grief, and yet here she was, standing before both species with her hands bare and her face unguarded. She began to speak. Her voice was soft at first, but it carried across the plateau. In my world, there is no word for what I feel now. We were taught that bonds weaken judgment, that emotion blinds reason, that to honor the life of another beyond protocol is to invite chaos. She paused, her violet gaze sweeping across the crowd. But one human showed me that chaos can also be courage. That loyalty is not weakness. That sacrifice is not loss, it is legacy. Murmurs rippled through the alien delegates. Some frowned, others looked away. But many listened with wide, uncertain eyes. She continued, her voice stronger now. He stood for me when he did not have to. He died for me when every law said he should not. And because of him, I see the truth. Humans are not fragile. They are not reckless. They are unbreakable, gasps echoed. Some humans wept openly. Others clenched their fists in pride. The aliens exchanged looks, caught between disbelief and awe. The diplomat stepped closer to the memorial. She placed her hand against Aaron's name, her fingers trembling. From this day I defy the old law. I call him my protector. And I swear wherever I walk in this galaxy, his story will walk with me. The silence that followed was deeper than any words. The twin suns rose higher, casting long rays of light across the crowd. It was as if the universe itself bore witness. Then slowly the humans began to clap. One by one others joined, the sound of hands striking in rhythm, a sound foreign to many alien ears but filled with power. Some aliens looked confused, but then hesitantly they mimicked the gesture. Soon the entire plateau echoed with the thunder of applause, a sound that carried into the sky. For a brief moment there were no barriers, no protocols, no borders, only unity. In the days that followed, Aaron's name spread farther still. On distant planets, strangers built small shrines. In academies, cadets studied his last stand as a lesson not of strategy, but of spirit. Among the alien diplomat's people, debates raged louder than ever. Some condemned her, but others began to question the old ways. And in secret, many whispered his name with reverence. Aaron had become more than a soldier. He had become the beginning of something new. The diplomat often returned to the memorial alone. She would stand in silence, her hand resting on the carved stone, her mind replaying his final words. Stay alive. That's all that matters. She did not know what the future would hold. The galaxy was vast, full of war and fear. But she knew this. Because of one human, everything had changed. And as the sun set on that plateau, casting the world in shades of fire and shadow, the truth was clear. A new dawn had begun, not for humans alone, not for aliens alone, but for both together.